in general, one of the best things you can do to eliminate most bad behaviors in game, or most ineffective behaviors in game, let's call it, is when you're looking at your actions, ask yourself, would I do this with my good friends? Or would I do this with a girl who I already really know is into me, right? If you knew a girl had a crush on you for 3 years, and you're like, yeah, she's cute, but I'm not that into her, the way you treat that girl is kind of like the way you should treat all girls, right? The girl that you genuinely like her personality, you enjoy hanging out with her, she has a crush on you, but you genuinely just are, you know you're not going to do it, like you see her as more of a friend, even though she's cute and it's fun to flirt with her. That's kind of the way you should be treating the hottest girls, right? So ask yourself, when you're doing various things, am I acting that way, right? When you're going to send a girl a text, ask yourself, would I send this to a girl if I knew 100% she liked me? If I wasn't needy for her, if I knew I didn't need to do anything, and she was going to keep texting me. That's probably how you should be texting. In that case, you're texting, you know, when it makes sense for communication. You're texting in a way that's fun for you. When you're busy, you'll get back to her later, right? You're not obsessed with it. And you're certainly not like thinking about your text and texting it and then deleting it and putting it back and thinking about it some more and putting it back in your pocket and spending half an hour to send a text. You're certainly not doing that in that case, right? It's amazing how, like, I would love to see a correlation graph for the amount of time spent on a text versus how awful the text is, right? In general, there's definitely a threshold where if you spend more than this amount of time on the text, it's going to be terrible. And oftentimes, you'll think it's brilliant at the time because you'll be like, oh, let's do this. I can make it more clever with this. I can make it more clever. And then you send it, and then right afterwards, you realize, oh, fuck. Nobody could possibly get that joke if they hadn't just had the, like, 30-minute thought loop leading up to that joke that I had, right? And you just sent something that made no sense and was, like, way over the top. So anyway, but yeah, if you believe the right things about yourself, about the girl, about the relationship, it's hard to act in the wrong way. You might not be perfect, but it's hard to act in the wrong way. A huge revelation for me, this was probably, I don't know, this might have been a decade ago when I figured this out. It was on I had a boot camp, and there was a guy that he was very, very, very logical, right? He was very like, he was very like, I don't want to do this gamey thing because I feel weird doing it and I feel reactive doing it and I don't want to say this line or that line, right? And yeah, he was a very, very hard to coach because he didn't want to take the advice, right? He didn't want to take the advice, or when he did do the gamey line or the thing that is technically a good game, he would do it in a weird, incongruent way, just inherently because he felt weird about it. He felt awkward with it. And I had, I guess, a moment of inspiration or a moment of like a flash of brilliance or something like that. And what I told him to do was basically, all right, fine, just narrate what you're thinking from a high value frame. Like adopt a high value frame, act like you're this high value guy, and then just narrate what that character is thinking at all times. And if you're, just get to the level of like self-acceptance and just say that thing. So if you can say, hey, excuse me, I noticed you, I think you're very cute, and I thought we owed it to ourselves to meet each other, so I came and said hi to you. If you can say that congruently, say it congruently. If you can't be congruent saying that, or you can't think of something to say or whatever you're running out, you're like, hi, excuse me, I absolutely have no idea what to say to you. I don't even know, but I know that I found you attractive, and so I wanted to come over here, and I figured, look, we'll figure it out. So I'm Todd, nice to meet you. It's actually not bad, right? It's actually not bad, right? Yeah. It's actually fine, right? But what if you can't even like self-accept that? What if you don't have that level of self-acceptance? Hi, I'm sorry. Hi, listen, I'm honestly, I don't even know what I wanted to say to you. I can't even think of it. And honestly, I'll be honest, I feel really embarrassed about that. I honestly feel pretty lame right now. But as long as I'm here, I'm Todd. Maybe we'll be friends, maybe we won't. Right? It still could kind of work. Right? It still could kind of work. As long as whatever you're saying, almost no matter how lame, if you've achieved true self-acceptance with that level, then it's kind of okay. Right? So just figure out your level of like self-acceptance and congruence and just speak at that level. Narrate that level, and it's kind of okay. If you get the frame right, you can't really mess it up too badly. If you have the right frame, but you don't make any progress in the interaction, you actually can mess it up on a long term, right? So if you have the frame of being a high value guy, but you neglect to make it man to woman in any way, or you neglect to lead, neglect to escalate, you're going to end up being friend zoned or just not closing or something like that. So on a long timeline, you can mess up by just having the right frame if you don't take the right actions. But moment to moments, it really works. And in general, it really works. And also, if the right frame contains some understanding of game, now it just kind of universally works. If the right frame also includes the idea that as a man, you probably have to lead, right? And if it does include the idea that women like sex, and that sex is not like this this naughty thing that we have to not talk about, right? If you have the right attitudes there, and you're speaking from there, then you're generally going to be okay. Now, would it be better if you had like crisp push-pull lines and were clever and you passed your shit test well? Yes, it absolutely would. It absolutely would be better if you did all those things. But if as your baseline minimum, you just narrate as a high-value man, you just say what's literally in your mind as a high-value man, you're not going to go far wrong. You're going to have pretty damn good game most of the time just from that. Okay? So that's a good foundation for everything. But now we can talk about technique. Once you have that foundation, layering technique on top of it is good. And it's very important to have the foundation first and get the technique second. If you start with the technique without the foundation, you'll say it in incongruent ways, right? There are a lot of guys that will say a flirty line, and they won't say it in a flirty way. They'll say it in a very hyper-logical way, or a very serious way, or even like a creepy way, right? It doesn't work. So for example, I had a student a long time ago. There's this old school line, if I'm talking to two girls, speaking of groups, someone said, right? You know, oh, you guys are interesting as friends because I think you're like the good girl, but you're definitely the bad girl, right? Very old school line, not even the best line, old school line. It does work to some extent. I had a student, he walked up and his version of this line is, "You are bad girl." I was like, okay. That's not the line. That's not the intended delivery at all, and you got a completely different message across.